Hi, I'm Ann Hales with AARP. Do you struggle with ideas for a spring basket or an Easter basket? Well, look no further. We're going to show you today how to create something that everyone will love right here on Art with the Armory, brought to you by AARP Alabama. And as I said, I'm Ann Hales. I'm the Outreach Director for AARP in Central Alabama. We are continuing our efforts during this pandemic to bring you some fun and educational things that you can do at home to explore your creative side. These activities, they're good for the soul. I love this session. Today, I am joined again by the talented, multi-talented Arts Program Coordinator of the Armory Learning Arts Center, Margaret Barber. Good afternoon, Margaret. Hi.
Hi, Ann. It's always good to be here, and these are always so much fun. Well, I'll give you a little sneak peek. We're going to do felted eggs today, but then in April, we're going to do a painting with Mary McLemore. She's a local artist here. And then in May, I'm going to attempt to teach you guys how to do paper quilling. So those are just a couple little upcoming things, but right now, we're so excited to have Helen Shields, our artsy friend who hails from Wiltshire, UK in the Cotswolds. You know, you think Bronte sisters. She holds a printed textile design degree and a secondary degree in batik from Duncan of Jordanson in Scotland. Scotland is also where Helen met her sweet husband, and she's been living in Montgomery for the last couple of years. Welcome, Helen.
Hello, happy to be here.
Glad to have you.
It is so good to have you here today. I've been looking forward to this so much. I can't tell you.
It's exciting. I'm looking forward to teaching.
So tell us about your felted eggs.
So I'm going to teach you today how to make, if I bring that up here, there we go, how to make little eggs. And it's really simple. We're just going to take, I call it polystyrene. I think you call it styrofoam.
Yeah, just
styrofoam. Language barrier. We're going to use a little felting mat or even just a piece of foam. And we're going to use some fleece. And it's as simple as that. That's all you need. It's not messy. It's not dirty. You can pick it up, put it down, feed the kids, come back to it. You can do all sorts.
Great. Okay, well, we'll get started. But right before we do, let me show you, I do want to show you the list of items that Helen was referring to. And we will put these in the chat below. It is also listed in the video that we're going to show in just a minute that kind of walks you through this. What I'd like to remind you is that you can continue to come back to this at any time. Watch it today so that you can see the things that you need and what you need to do and just enjoy it. Sit back and relax. Kind of like the way I like to watch exercise video. Just sit back and watch and relax the first time through. And then we'll see what we need to do. So that's what we're going to do today. Watch, sit back, relax, come back to it. It's on AARP's Facebook page, AARP Alabama's Facebook page, and also on our YouTube channel. We also have other events that I want you to be sure that you come to and see. You can search for all of our events on our webpage, aarp.org/AL. And you can also look on our Facebook page. This Friday, we have a special one coming up, a new series on fraud. So it will come on noon. And you can ask any of your questions that you have about fraud and different kinds of fraud coming that you see in your area. And things that affect you. So that will be, we'll tell more about this at the end of this broadcast. I'll show you a video. And if you have questions during this session, please put those in the chat. And right now, let's take a look at the video. And we'll show you how to do this.
So for this process, we're going to be using a felting needle. They've got barbs on the end of the needle, and what happens is when you stab the fibres of the wool with the needle, they start to connect together. The more you stab, the tighter the surface and the firmer the project will become. You're going to want to stab in and out at a 90-degree angle, and I hold the needle between my middle finger and my thumb with my other finger on top, and this means that when I'm stabbing into the project it doesn't bounce out and I'm not having to squeeze those fingers together really tightly, which can become sore. I'm also using a clover needle that you can get from Amazon. It holds 3 needles, but you can unscrew it and pop out broken needles, but also take it down to just a 1 or a 2 holder needle, which means that it's probably kinder on your hand if you've got arthritis or find that gripping something really small is difficult. I also use a 4 stabber, which we'll see more of later on. The other thing you're going to need is a surface to work on. I use these wool buddies, which I get from Amazon. They're 100% wool. They're very good, but they do get clogged up, so you have to clean them off from time to time. For my classes, I use foam, which you can get from Joann's. It's just an upholstery foam, and you want to go for a firm density on that. They're great surfaces to work on, and I'd recommend going for a larger piece so that you have a bigger, more stable area to work on. We're going to be using polystyrene, as I call it, or styrofoam, I believe, as you call it in the US, X as our base. And we're going to be using 100% merino wool to felt with. You can use any wool, but I find that merino has some amazing colours. And if you're anything like me, you'll end up wanting to collect every single colour they have. You're going to pull a little bit of fibre off, and then you're going to open it up and hold it over your egg, and then using the larger stabber, the 4, which means that you can just stab an area a bit quicker. Not great for detail, but great for kind of bulk stabbing. You're just going to stab over that surface. You're going to keep adding more and more onto the egg until you can no longer see the white underneath. I don't recommend trying to cover it all in one go, which is the temptation, because you'll end up getting a lumpier, bumpier surface. Twist your egg round to do over the top and the bottom. And you're just going to keep going in this manner until you've got a really nice smooth surface and you've got a finished egg. Then you're going to choose which design that you want to put on. I'm going to put a daisy on this one. So I'm just screwing up a little bit of yellow felt to go in the centre. And I start by anchoring it in the middle. And then I work my needle around to stab in the areas that are sticking out. I would recommend that you move your egg and your hand around so that when you come in to do the edges, you're coming in at an angle. It means that you don't end up with quite such a flat finish to the design. With needle felting, you can create 3D designs, really easily. Just by building up areas of wool. So if you wanted this daisy to have a really high centre, you would just add more yellow wool into the middle layer. If you want it to be really flat, you would add just slightly less wool. It takes a little while to attach it in with a single needle. You could go in with a bigger one here, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. You have less control with the more needles that you have. So just keep stabbing around as we go until you get the colour that you want. Then you're going to think about your petals. So I'm going to use some white, and I'm just pulling a little bit off and I'm folding it in half. And then I'm going to attach the bottom bit first down by the daisy. And then I'm just going to use my needle to kind of tuck and pull the extra fibres where I want them. Again, wool is really easy. It's almost like drawing with it. You just pull it around where you want it and need it, and just keep stabbing in those extra bits. If you have too much, you can cut it off with scissors. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend pulling off any excess fibres. But scissors do work. If I make a mistake on a 3D piece, I'll use scissors and just cut limbs off. Many of my class pupils will tell you that they cry when I come and I take the scissors to their work. So just keep doing this all the way around the piece until you've got all the petals on that you want. As I said, the merino wool I get from a company called Mohair & More in the US. They're really good, really quick service. They've got most of the colours that I want. I started off originally with 6 colours when I first started felting. I now have a 4-drawer filing cabinet, which is massive, full of numerous colours and numerous types of wool. Merino isn't the only wool that you can use. You can use natural fibred wools if you want a more natural finish. Again, they're now making some synthetic bamboo wools with different dyed colours. The range isn't quite as big as the merino, but I find the merino really nice and silky and clean to work with. So again, I'm just pulling little pieces and I'm just working my way around until I've got all those petals in. The particular brand of merino I use is called a Merino 64. It just means that it's a certain fineness. So if you want a really, really fine wool, you're going to go up to the 120. But I find that the 64 works really well. So I've pretty much got all of my petals in now. And then I'm looking at it thinking it needs something a little extra. So I'm going to take a little bit of orange and I'm just going to screw that between my fingers, and I'm just going to create little tiny balls of petals, stamens in around the center. With felting, you can get as detailed or as basic as you like. So the other thing I may do, as you can see in the eggs at the top corner, is add a little bit of shading. So if you've got several shades of yellow, you could come in and you could put a shadow underneath the bottom of that middle stamen. You could shade the turquoise around the petals, or even put some veins into the petals if you wanted to. So that's that done, and we're now going to show you how to do the stripes. I'm pulling a section off the side of the bat and just keeping it in a nice long section, and I'm holding it with 2 fingers tightly, and then I'm just stabbing down. I'm just tucking in the edges as I go to make sure that I keep my stripe the same thickness. And you just work your way around. If you've got any spaces or gaps where you can see the felt underneath, you just come back in and put a bit more. If you get like this section here, so I'm going round, stabbing this in. If I get to my ends, I just tuck them back round on the extra piece that I've already just done. Again, you can raise these stripes if you wanted to, so you can just keep adding more and more onto one section, and you could get kind of a ridged stripe, or you can just go for a flat pattern. You can go thin, skinny ones, so just take off even less. You could spiral it down the egg. You could do all sorts of different designs. Really, your imagination is your limit with felting. I find the more you do, you get more and more engaged with it, and you kind of think, oh, I could do that design, or oh, I could do that design. So here you can see I'm just adding a little extra on because I can still see some of that blue base colour underneath. Again, I wouldn't cut away any extra felt. I would just pull it off if I didn't need it, or just carry on tucking it around. It's important, which I didn't mention earlier, it is important to keep your other hand well away from the project if you can. If you've got to get in and get close detail, I'd recommend holding your hand up at a 90-degree angle so that the needle slides down your nail. Otherwise, you are likely to stab the sides of your fingers. I've been felting now for 15 years, and even I still stab my hand sometimes. So the next design idea I'm going to give you is we're going to use a piece of pre-felt. You can buy this pre-felted, or if you get 100% wool felt from Joann's will work. Or if you want to, you can make your own. All I do is I take a section of fabric, lay it flat out on my mat. Using my big 4 stabber, I start to stab that surface. Tuck in those fluffy ends on both sides and just keep stabbing. What you do need to remember is that when you're doing this, every now and again, you need to stop and pull this off of your mat. If you don't, you'll find you've got absolutely embedded into the mat, and you'll end up having to either rebuy a new foam felt base, or you'll spend hours pulling it out. Just every few stabs, pick it up, turn it over and check it, just to make sure that you haven't embedded it. As you pull it off, as you can see I'm doing here now, I've got a couple of gaps in there that you can see it's not very thick. All I'm going to do is add some more fibre on and keep stabbing. This is quite a tedious process. It does work and it's great. I use it for kind of doing rabbit's ears and all sorts of things like that. But you do need to kind of stab. It's a great, good underarm workout, gets rid of those bingo wings. So just keep stabbing until you've got the surface that you can see on the white, which is nice and smooth, and you've no longer got any of those extra fluffy bits that I've got on there on that one. So we're going to take the white piece that I've already got, and all I've done is I've printed out a bunny rabbit silhouette. I've scaled it so it will look right on the side of my egg. If you're not an artist, which I hear a lot of people say to me, oh, but I'm not an artist. You don't need to be. Go onto Google, go onto Pinterest, and just pump in there bunny rabbit silhouette. And you'll get some amazing pictures up. And just by simply going into Word or on a photocopier, you can kind of print out the size that you want. I just pin this onto the felt, and I'm going around with a little pair of really sharp scissors, and I'm just cutting the little fella's shape out. It can get a bit fluffy and a bit caught, and what you want to do is to take off any extra fibres that are kind of sticking out the edge. But just take your time, work away around the silhouette, holding it as you go, because the pins, although they hold them, it will slip and slide slightly. I do recommend having a really good sharp pair of scissors in your kit, but also a pair of old dull ones for cutting pipe cleaners, wires, anything like that. I'm terrible at using scissors for jobs that they're not meant to be used for, and I end up with loads of dull scissors everywhere. My children also disappear with them and cut all sorts of things which I know they're not meant to. So I've ended up with a whole drawer full of scissors at home that don't really do very much these days. So we're nearly just finished there. I'm just coming round and getting those last bits. And I'm just tidying up, as you can see, those kind of extra fluffy edges. What you need to be aware of with the felt is if something is very, very fine and thin, it will be really difficult to attach it. But you'll see in a minute how I go about doing something. So I've chosen my orange base that I'm going to put the rabbit on. And then you just unpin your template and decide where you want to put it. Again, it's a personal choice. You could do several of these bunnies running around. You could do a sitting up, sitting down, just one single bunny, as I'm going to do on this one. I hold it into place, a bit like we did with the felt, firmly on each end, and I start in the middle. I just do this to anchor it. It just means it stops it sliding around quite so much. And then I'm just going to work the way all over the surface with my single needle. You could come back and use the bigger needle on this, but I find it can sometimes distort finer images like this because it pulls and yanks sections. So it's a bit like if you pushed really hard on a rolling pin on your dough from one end, it will squeeze that dough out and not the other section. So I'm just working my way around. With the cutout pre-felt, you'll find the edges are a little bit more difficult to felt. They tend to splay out a little bit more. So you just need to kind of come in, twisting that egg again like we did with the middle stamen on the flower, to kind of tighten up those edges. It takes a little while to do this. Patience is key with felting. Quite often you'll go through an ugly phase where you think, oh, this isn't working. Persevere, because it really does come together. I will also say that you will find fluff absolutely everywhere in your house after you've done some felting. But that's part of the joy, I think. My husband loves me for all the felt that I've got laying around. Again, I'm just coming in, tightening up around that area of the ears. And then coming round and tightening up the face. You could do this with spots. So I've done it for Valentine's, where I've done a red egg and I've covered it with lots of white spots or white hearts. You can do it on flat pieces as well. So if you wanted to do a flat piece of felt and then do a cutout design on top, you can. I've found that I've embroidered onto these before now as well. Needle felting is great if you're an embroiderer, because you can kind of create pictures and then come back in and do French knots and seed stitches and all sorts of things like that, and it makes a really lovely surface to work on. So again, I'm just tidying up all those edges as we go round. Needle felt itself is not expensive, so for merino wool you're looking at about $4 for an ounce. And again, I'd recommend, quite often companies do like a colour pack where they'll give you lots of different colours that you can have a play with until you work out what colours you want. I recommend keeping a colour code if you do get into felting and want to do more. it means that when you come to reorder, if it's not been put back in the right bag, you know what colour it is. So here you can see I've stabbed in the tail, and it wasn't quite as big and as fluffy as I wanted it to be. So all I've done is taken an extra bit of white fibre, and I'm just coming in and stabbing in my fluffy tail, and I'm not stabbing it quite so firmly because I actually want it to be slightly 3D. Again, he'd lost a little bit at the front of his foot, so I'm just going to take a little spare bit of fibre and put it back in and just extend that foot out a little bit so his silhouette looks a little bit nicer. They make great presents for family. You can put a loop through the top if you add some embroidery thread, or they look great if you actually felt yourself a nest, which you saw at the beginning of the video, and you can just see the leaves kind of poking out the top. I just added it to some sticks I picked up out the garden, and then I've put my nests into the egg to display on the side. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and enjoy doing some felting yourself.
Doesn't that look fun?
It does look fun.
We've had such a good time. Helen, you can, if you would tell us a little bit about the wools. I know we did a project with you recently, and there's so many varieties of sheep and different kinds of fibers and stuff. So
there's hundreds of different types of sheep. You can have what's called natural wool, which comes in all of these lovely natural colors, and they're great for projects like a recent one we've just done, which is little bunnies, or kind of more natural colored bunnies like that. The one I've mentioned in the project is merino wool. It comes in hundreds of colors. It's a little bit silkier and a little bit fluffier to work with. Different wools have different properties. So a lot of the sheep's wool, like this particular brown one, is very springy and very fluffy. It's a lot easier to build like a core base. In felting, when you start looking at felt, you'll find something called core wool. And a lot of people use that to build the inside of their projects. It just builds up a lot quicker. It doesn't need quite so much stabbing. You can felt with camel. You can felt with buffalo. You can felt with alpaca. You can even felt with some of your own dog hair if you've got a big fluffy dog. You can see my dog in the background there. You can also get specialty wools. So this one, if I pull it out here, is all curly. And it's brilliant. I don't know if I can hold it up there, you can see it. It's brilliant for like Santa's beards, that type of thing. I can show you on him.
How cute.
He's got a lovely curly beard. That's called Wensleydale. They've just got a very curly fleece. It's a little bit more expensive, and it comes in smaller packs, but it's great. I mean, this one is a camel hair. It's slightly coarser. Doesn't felt as easily, but it's quite good for projects as well. So I'd recommend going and having a look on the wool websites. There's a particular one in the UK that's very good called World of Wool, and they give a picture of the sheep and the properties of it, and it kind of gives you an idea of whether it's good for felting or what projects it might be good for.
That's good.
Yeah.
What you mentioned, you just showed the Santa Claus. Was that done on a styrofoam egg, or you can do it on all kinds of different?
Yeah. So a
shapes.
lot of my projects. So this one was done just wrapping lots and lots of wool and stabbing it. The polystyrene eggs are done with the core. This particular fella has been done on a wire cage. So he's got a wire cage underneath. If I'm doing something like one of these frogs, he's got little pipe cleaners in his feet, so which means that you can bend them up. He can do his exercises if he wants to. He can bend it back down again. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, depending on what you're trying to achieve. If you want something that's going to stand up on its own, so like this guy, I've got rigid wire in underneath this that sits on a base underneath the bird, and that means that he can stand up and he won't fall over. If I only did,
so then did you take pieces that you had created, like you showed on here, where you could do like the leaves and things like that, and then wrap it on a wire, because you can't really stab
yeah,
the wire,
so you take
right?
the wire and you would add a pipe cleaner and then wrap the two together with wool. The pipe cleaner stops it sliding up and down the wire.
Okay.
It just creates an anchor point for you to be able to then wrap around. And that's what I do with all of these little feet and things. This is actually a pipe cleaner in here, and the wool will kind of hold on to it.
Okay, cute. We had one question, and you answered it online, but I wanted to show everybody, if you get too stabby and stab in too much, I can see myself, because this could be good for you to stab a lot. Good therapy, but you know, can you fix it?
Yes, you can. So it's a case of you either cover some more over if you stab too much and you get kind of an indent, or if you put it on and you don't like it, you can just pull it back out. You might need to kind of recover the area with your base color again, but it's a bit like cake decorating, I guess. You can kind of build up and take away and build up and take away. I said in the video, if you don't like something, so if like this little fella, if penguin, if I didn't like the shape of his wings, I can just take a pair of scissors, cut the wings the shape that I want, and then just wrap a little bit more fiber so that it didn't all fall to pieces around the outside edge, and you can shape it that way. So for things like the tail feathers and stuff like this on this bird, I've basically made a flat piece of felt, and then I've cut around them, and then I've wrapped the edges just so that they're not so raw. And that way you can kind of almost build up a bit like a paper mache or something like that, where you just start adding sections on to get the design that you want.
Beautiful. And you had mentioned that you can also create shading, because I know on one of the eggs in the video in particular, it shows different shades. So people who are, yeah.
And it's when you're taking your fiber, you want to take, you pull a tiny little bit off, and you actually want a very, and you pull it between your fingers. You're just going to pull it into very small pieces like this. If I tried to put a big piece on, it would obviously be too solid. And then I'm really opening it up. You can see there that you can almost not see that if I put it on the green. And you're just going to add a really opened out piece and then just build it up. If you decide you've put too much on, just put the base color back over the top of it again, and you can kind of blend and shade just like you would do with a paintbrush.
Oh, okay. Great. We have another good question from Kathleen Elizabeth. Helen, what's your favorite way? What's your favorite way to display your Easter eggs around the house?
So I've built she says tucking them out. I've built a actual bird's nest out of felt. I enjoy doing it that way. You can put a loop in the top with a piece of embroidery thread and hang them on a branch if you've got an Easter tree. I know I used to have an Easter tree. I didn't bring it out with me, but you can kind of add a loop and then just hang them. You can do like I've done here, which is this is just from a craft store. It's just a paper kind of little fruit punnet, and you can just put them in that with a little bit of crazy paper behind the back of them. They make great presents to send to people because they're really light. So, you know, at Christmas, if you're sending overseas or something like that, I quite often send friends felting because it's just light to send. It's not heavy. It's not going to get damaged. If they get dirty or dusty in the house, you can put them in the washing machine and they'll wash.
Really? Wow, that's what I wanted to ask. How do you clean this? Because I know felt does attract, everything attracts in my house.
You know, these guys in the washing machine, but things like the felt eggs, felt balls, that type of thing, just stick it in a nice 40-degree wash in a washing machine. You can tumble dry it if you want. I'd probably just let it air dry. For the other big sculptures that I have, I tend to put them under a glass dome. You can get those really nice craft domes. But I also do things like big giant flowers.
Fun.
Beautiful.
And all I do is just give it a shake off to get the dust off it. And if it's really kind of getting a bit dusty, I might just rinse it underneath the tap with a little bit of soapy water and then just kind of hang it upside down to dry. It's a bit like anything, like a sweater, really. Just, you know, if you've got a really nice, expensive wool merino cashmere sweater, you wouldn't put it on a hot wash. So just treat it the same way.
Or you'll have a Barbie sweater.
We've all done that, right?
Yeah.
Helen, this has been wonderful. This is beautiful, and I think I'm going to try it. So
Good.
yeah, I'm going to try it
You
for
can do it with grandchildren
Easter.
from the age 5 upwards. I've brought felting. So, and they're usually much better than I am. They're much quicker.
Well, and it looks forgiving too, that you can continue to, that's what I liked about it too, because I like, that's what I need is I can go back and do some more creation or creating on my projects.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And Margaret, tell us again what we're going to be doing the next couple of months coming up.
April, we're going to be doing a painting, kind of a still life with Mary McLemore. She's going to work, I believe, doing a diptych with us, which is 2 pieces that work together to create a single art piece. And then in May, I'm going to teach paper quilling for a Mother's Day project, like a card probably. So yeah, it'll be fun. Couple little teasers for the next couple of months.
Yeah, so we're planning to do this through the end of the year. At least we've been doing this for a few years now. So this is a lot of fun. We've been doing these in person. Now we're virtual. We're all learning this virtual world, and so we'll continue this. Thank you again. Everybody stick around for a second. Let me show this brief video of things that are coming up, and please come back the second Wednesday of every month at 1 o'clock. So here is the next coming up.